So my name is Owen Douglas, and as Liam said, I'm the Research and Policy Officer in one of the 3 regional assemblies in Ireland. So I think it's important to start out by kind of outlining what we are and what we do, because many of you may not be familiar with the regional assembly structures. We replaced what were the 8 regional authorities. It was part of the Local Government Reform Act 2014, and we were established in 2015. And our functions are broad. They're broader than the regional authorities were. You may recall the regional planning guidelines that focus very much on planning. We develop strategies, our regional, spatial, and economic strategies. So they're more holistic in a way. And that's kind of where we've kind of delved a bit deeper in terms of the integration of environment, society, and economy. So broadly speaking, there are 3 main functions, and the main reason I'm showing this is it's through these functions that I'm using this as a structure to present what we do and how it's relevant for biodiversity management. So through our strategic planning, as I say, we make the RSES, and there are specific policies in that for biodiversity and biodiversity management and for green infrastructure. And it's one of our key powers, in a way, as a regional authority, because all local authority development plan policies and all policies contained in local economic and community plans have to be consistent with our strategy. So, we can influence what happens down the line. Then, in terms of EU affairs, we're the mechanism for drawing down regional funding, generally from the European Union. We're variously, across the 3 regional assemblies, the managing authority for the regional operational programs. You may be familiar with ERDF, European Regional Development Funding. And also this year, much earlier this year, it feels like a long time ago, EMRA, the Eastern and Midland region, was appointed managing authority for the EU Just Transition Fund, which is about tackling the negative impacts in terms of economy and society, but also there are environmental elements in the Midlands from the cessation of peat production, and in that there's opportunities around peatland rehabilitation. And we provide support, so we're the contact point for all of the Interreg and European funding programs, and we provide support to the Committee of the Regions and the Irish Regions European Office. So the Committee of the Regions is drawn from our own elected members. I should have said at the outset that the membership of the regional assemblies are nominated elected members from each of the local authorities in each regional assembly, and they're nominated on the basis of population per county. And then the third overall function is effectiveness in local government. So obviously, as with the regional focus, we can kind of bring local authorities together and provide that coordination piece. We sit in the middle between the national development plan and the local, and then to support research and development of an evidence base, because as we'll all be aware, policy needs to be evidence-based. I think I don't need to convince anybody of that. So in terms of the there we go. It's getting slow like the rest of us today. So our strategies are 12-year strategies, which means they have a longer outlook than the local authority development plan. So it provides that bit of a strategic view, a bit like the National Development Plan and the National Planning Framework are to 2040. Ours are 12-year strategies. So the EMRA one was the first one to be made in 2019, and that'll run for 12 years to 2031. And within these, the objectives, there are objectives for all of the issues relevant for biodiversity management, the need to conserve and enhance the biodiversity of habitats and native species, identify and protect ecosystem services, and ensure the sustainable management of natural resources and build climate resilience. And they all have objectives around green infrastructure as well. I think the battery is, there we go. So this is just one example. So I talk about objectives. So this is just by example. There are lots of objectives relevant to the themes of the conference. However, these, what I've set out here, I've pulled out the relevant policy objectives for protected areas from the strategies of the 3 regional assemblies there. So you can see how they are kind of the regional expression of the national policy objective contained in the National Planning Framework about enhancing the conservation status and improving the management of protected areas and protected species. So each regional assembly has interpreted that in its own way that is of relevance to its own area. So that's one way, it's policy alignment. But we also have to implement our strategies, and what I'm doing is I'm providing kind of an example from each of the regional assemblies. And we also secure implementation through participation in projects. And I think a good example is the Northern and Western Regional Assembly is a partner on the Wild Atlantic Nature Life Project. Automatically looking at this slide, you can see the regional relevance where it's 35 project sites. It's blanket bogs, which are a priority habitat across that region. And the participation of the Regional Assembly can provide that regional coherence. And through this participation, then, we secure best practice learnings that are then shared to inform future actions, future iterations of our own plans, but also how we engage with the local authorities. And that can be across landscape and ecosystem management, capacity building, and education and awareness. And they're the key objectives of that Wild Atlantic Nature Life project. So I mentioned the EU funding piece and the EU affairs, and I could speak forever on all of the various funding programs that are out there. But I think this one provides a good example of ways in which local authorities can engage with us and can draw down funding for local actions. So one of the funding programs through the ERDF, the European Regional Development Fund, is URBACT, and it's about exchange and learning. It aims to build capacity of urban areas, so it's got an urban focus, to design and implement sustainable urban development strategies. So we'll all agree any sustainable urban development strategy is underlined by environmental sustainability. The local authorities are the main beneficiaries, and all urban areas in Ireland are eligible, however small, from the largest city to the smallest village. There are different types of networks. I won't go into these, but it's about urban areas from right across Europe working together to find solutions to problems that they have, or where a good practice has been identified in a particular city, it becomes a lead city, and then that is transferred down to other cities or towns or urban areas. And one of the great things about this URBACT is that it focuses on small interventions. It's not big in terms of what happens. The fund right across Europe is 110 million, which, as you'll know, isn't huge, but it's about those small actions. And it's a kind of a plug. So EMRA is the contact point for URBACT. And the first call for the new programming period it will be in January. Next, we'll provide information sessions. And I just say as well, there's never been an Irish lead partner on an URBACT project, so we'd encourage the local authorities to get their thinking caps on, think about urban issues, and from the perspective of this conference, think about environmental management, biodiversity management, and is there a project that you'd have in mind at the small scale? And just to show, these are examples of some of the projects that were in the last programming period. The first, Rurban, was partnered by Carlow County Council, and that was about urban agriculture for resilient cities. Many of you here in Limerick will be familiar with the Health and Green Space network, which was partnered by Limerick City and County Council, and that was about green infrastructure, design and management, and human health. And a third one there that there wasn't an Irish partner on, but that was very successful. It had 2 iterations, was BeePathNet, which was about enriching the urban jungle with bees. So that one just shows the relevance of this as a potential funding source for small-scale interventions. And then finally, the third function is effectiveness in local government, securing effectiveness in local government. You might recognize some faces on this slide. This is where, in our capacity as a regional assembly, we engage with stakeholders right across our region to help to improve the effectiveness in local government. And an example of this was we co-organized the regional fora, the Regional Strategic Environmental Assessment Forum as part of the National SEA Forum. And last November, we organised a workshop online about bringing nature into local authority development plans. And so we had Una from NBDC, you can see Fran Igo there, and Catherine Farrell, who many of you will know. And this was targeted very much at planners in the local authorities. So, you know, from the outset there, I was talking about concepts like ecosystem services, and if there's a national objective for ecosystem services that's then just kind of transposed down into the regional, down into the local. But even at that point, a lot of people still don't know what that actually means or how it can be implemented. So this was about building capacity about this new terminology that's coming into our development plans through higher level policy. We also enhance effectiveness in local government through project participation. And from EMRA, one example of this is the Progress project, which was about promoting improved governance for regional ecosystem services. And we secured some additional funding from Interreg Europe to undertake a pilot action where we transferred a good practice identified for habitat mapping, particularly an ecosystem service mapping, from Barcelona to Dunleary Rathdown. And there was great value in working directly with Anne Murray, who is the Biodiversity Officer in Dunleary Rathdown. And that was pretty successful. You know, we mapped the entire local authority in terms of conservation value, functional value, population proximity, and that ties into some of the challenges mentioned throughout the conference, like the rollout of, say, green infrastructure, where the demand for green infrastructure and cycleways is through what can be quite sensitive environments. So this is about providing a tool for decision makers to maybe make them more aware of those sensitivities. We also, through this project and working with Una, secured for the first time a specific action for the regional assemblies in the new iteration of the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan, and we also developed an animated video of the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan as a means to encourage other regions across Europe to use it as a template in their own regions. And then finally, this is something that's been mentioned a few times, Bernadette earlier today, I think, and Fran Igo yesterday. But you know, it was mentioned in the context of the Southern Regional Assembly developing a new framework for blue-green infrastructure and nature-based solutions. And just to say that this came through one of those Interreg Europe projects, which was the Blue-Green City project. So again, it just shows the relevance of that regional mechanism for biodiversity management. So that's all I have to say. There's my details. Thank you.